I think one of the things that's most important to me is, one of the really the notions that the United States was founded on, and that is liberty. So it's a very difficult thing. I mean, there's lots of very interesting stuff to think about in this regard, and it just so happens that a free market economy, sort of a capitalist system, which has a lot of liberty mixed in with it, that we all get to decide, how we're going to go about making our own living and so on and so on. That happens to also be a very effective way of deploying an economy, so that you get an economy which mostly makes sense. Things mysteriously, because of that invisible hand, tend to work out. I remember there was a time, I may have these statistics slightly wrong, that a few years ago there was a heat wave in the South that killed 3% of chickens. And I think egg prices doubled because there were 3% fewer chickens. So that means that the number of chickens is roughly right, even though there's nobody deciding how many chickens there should be. All right, so that is a very interesting fact, I think, that the free market economy, which by necessity involves a lot of liberty, just happens to work well in terms of allocating resources. But imagine a different world. Imagine a world where some incredibly artificially intelligent computer could actually do a better job than the invisible hand of allocating resources, and were to say, there shouldn't be this many chickens, there should be this many chickens, just a few more or a few less. Well, that might even lead to more aggregate wealth. So it might be a society that if you give up liberty, everybody could be a little wealthier. Now, the question that I would pose is, if that turned out to be the world, is that a good trade? Personally, I don't think so. Personally, I think it'd be a terrible trade. And I sometimes worry about that, because I think it's a coincidence that that liberty tends to do such a good job of sort of creating an economy that functions well. I think liberty, giving people the freedom to as long as they're not hurting somebody else, do what they want, is super important. I think it's the core essence of the American dream, and I think at times we as a people get confused about it. I mean, I think one of the things that you see come up in various places, and people talk about it under different labels. Sometimes they talk about it as a lack of personal responsibility and other kinds of labels. But what it really is I think people should carefully reread the first part of the Declaration of Independence, because I think sometimes we as a society start to get confused and think that we have a right to happiness. But if you read the Declaration of Independence, it talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Nobody has a right to happiness. You should have a right to pursue it, and I think the core of that is liberty.